Hey, what is up? So for this video, I want to take a look at how the Breaking Bad timeline could be utilized in the plot of the 6th and final season of Better Call Saul. Okay, so over the course of 5 full seasons, we've only seen one scene in the plot of Better Call Saul that took place during the timeline of Breaking Bad. And this scene took place in season 4 in the episode entitled Quite a Ride.
Quite a ride, huh?
During the cold opening scene of this episode, we see Saul Goodman frantically packing while his secretary Francesca shreds documents in his office. Now, right off the bat, there's so much going on here in this scene that I don't really know where to begin. But just to set the scene here, let's start with where exactly in the Breaking Bad timeline this scene takes place. Okay, so based on Saul Goodman's clothing and luggage, as well as his dialogue in this scene,
I need a new dust filter for my Hoover Max Extract Pressure Pro Model 60. Can you help me with that? A pickup. How hot? Red hot. I know where that is. I'll be there.
we know that this scene took place immediately prior to him arriving at the vacuum cleaner repair shop run by Ed the Disappearer that we saw him arrive at in season 5 of Breaking Bad in the episode entitled Granite State.
It's an actual store. I guess I figured vacuum cleaner repair was a term of art.
That being said, I actually discussed the storyline involving how Saul may have established his connection with Ed the Disappearer in a previous video, so definitely check that out if you want an in-depth breakdown of this plot detail, link in the description. But getting back to this Breaking Bad timeline scene here, it appears that sometime prior to this scene, Saul received information surrounding Walter White making his arrangements to flee Albuquerque as well, and this is when Saul knew that he had to do the same in order to avoid arrest. But it should be noted that it's currently unknown how exactly Saul made this discovery, in addition to how long after Walter White called Ed the Disappearer that Saul then called Ed, all based on the dialogue we heard in season 5 of Breaking Bad in the episode entitled Granite State.
Only thing is, and I don't like to do this, but you'll have a bunkmate.
Oh, yeah? He's still here?
For the moment. He's a special case, and it takes some doing.
But I think we can infer that Saul spoke with Walt at some point in time following the events that transpired in the episode entitled Ozymandias. But at the same time, I suppose it is also theoretically possible that Saul heard about Walt's situation on the news in respect to the Amber Alert that was put out when Skyler called the police after Walt kidnapped Holly in that same episode.
Confirming the abduction, Amber Alert. Holly White, female, 18 months, blonde hair, blue eyes. Was last seen wearing a pink and white jacket, pink pants.
Thus, making Saul realize that the shit had just hit the fan here and it was time to flee. But of course, we're just speculating here. Now, before I get into all of the subtle and intricate details that pertain to Saul Goodman in this scene, I first want to take a look at the idea that we could see Walter White appear in the plot of Better Call Saul next season as part of another scene in the Breaking Bad timeline. And while I recently made a video surrounding how Walter White could appear in the present day timeline of Better Call Saul in season 6, link in the description, I omitted the consideration that the creators could display to us a scene of Walter White as part of a Breaking Bad timeline flash forward next season. Now, like the questions I raised surrounding what would be the purpose of this appearance by Walter White in the Better Call Saul timeline, the same goes here for his appearance in the Breaking Bad timeline. How would this appearance serve the purpose of the plot next season? Because with there already being so many details in this cold opening scene from the episode entitled Quite a Ride that need to be addressed next season, adding Walter White into the storyline, in my opinion, could take away from and maybe distract from all of the details surrounding Saul Goodman in this scene. And thus, any scene of Walter White of this nature, I think would have to directly relate to the storyline of Saul Goodman specifically, and not just be about Walter White for the sake of it. So for example, based on the aforementioned fact that we don't know what caused Saul to realize that he had to immediately flee Albuquerque in this episode. Maybe the creators could display to us a scene of Walter White and Saul conversing, where Walt tells him about what had transpired in the episode entitled Ozymandias. But of course, like I said, we're just speculating here. Now, in addition to Walter White theoretically appearing here in a scene in the Breaking Bad timeline next season, I now also want to take a look at all the subtle details that were presented to us in this scene and how they will need to be addressed in the plot of Better Call Saul next season in the name of good storytelling. So the two major details that were revealed to us in this scene were first, the name of the lawyer that Saul gave to Francesca, that he told her to call after the police come and talk to her, where we then hear Saul tell Francesca to quote unquote tell them that Jimmy sent you.
Okay, when the cops come talk to you, and they will, what are you going to tell them?
Talk to my attorney.
Yeah. Tell them Jimmy sent you.
Now, of course, while we could speculate all day as to who this lawyer is it Howard, is it Kim, I certainly think that it was not done by accident that Saul said them in this scene instead of him or her here, in order for the creators to leave the speculation of who this lawyer is more open to interpretation. In addition to this, the other plot detail that needs resolution here in this scene is the question that Saul posed to Francesca surrounding where she will be on November 12th at 3 p.m., with Francesca then saying that she will be there, but if it doesn't ring at 3 on the dot, she's leaving. Saul, of course, confirming that it will ring.
Where are you going to be November 12th at 3 p.m.?
I'll be there, but if it doesn't ring at 3 on the dot, I'm gone.
Don't worry. It's going to ring.
Now again, while we can only speculate and shoot in the dark here surrounding what is the purpose of this phone call and where it will take place, it can be noted, however, that due to the shot of Saul Goodman's driver's license that was revealed to us in Season 5 of Better Call Saul in the episode entitled JMM, we know that November 12th is actually Saul Goodman's, aka James Morgan McGill's, birthday. And while we don't know right now what significance this will have on the plot of Better Call Saul next season, it can be noted that due to the fact that Walter White's birthday is in September based on the timeline of Breaking Bad, and the fact that this timeline spans only 2 years, it would be certain that Walter White would have already been dead following the events that transpired in the episode entitled Felina in Season 5 of Breaking Bad on Walter White's 52nd birthday, when this phone call to Francesca is set to take place. And also, just as a quick aside here, in addition to this storyline in the timeline of Breaking Bad, we will also need to see Francesca's role in the establishment of the law offices of Saul Goodman and Associates in the present-day timeline of Better Call Saul next season, as she was Saul Goodman's secretary for the entirety of Breaking Bad. And interestingly, this storyline will certainly have to incorporate the major shift that we've yet to see in Francesca's personality from the more upbeat and positive character she was when she worked for Saul and Kim in Season 3 of Better Call Saul, to the then much more angry and cynical character she became when she worked for Saul Goodman in the plot of Breaking Bad. Which, as a reminder, is just another plot detail that will need to be addressed next season on top of the other two major plot details that were revealed to us in this scene as part of the Breaking Bad timeline that need resolution. And just as another quick aside here, in respect to paying attention to the little details that the creators have utilized in this series, in my opinion, it's pretty cool to see that Saul is having Francesca shred the documents in this scene with a cross-cut shredder, which is a direct callback to Season 1 of Better Call Saul in the episode entitled Rico, where Chuck stated to Jimmy at least the shredded sandpaper documents that Jimmy acquired were not cross-cut, thus making them easier to put back together.
No, you don't shred like this unless you got something to hide, am I right?
Not necessarily.
Oh, come on, Chuck. A lawyer shows up, starts figuring out their little scheme, and suddenly this? No, it's not a coincidence. It's in here.
Well, at least it's not cross-cut.
As well as Saul in this scene telling Francesca to drop off the shredded documents at least 5 miles away in separate dumpsters.
All right, that's it. I'm going.
Do me a favor. Take those with you. Drop them off at least 5 miles from here in separate dumpsters.
Thus insinuating not to just place them outside of his office like Sandpiper did. in that same episode of Better Call Saul in season 1 as well. Additionally, in respect to the dialogue in this scene, we also heard Saul ask Francesca a number of questions regarding these shredded documents.
Did you shred the files under your desk?
Yes.
What about your Rolodex?
Yes, and everything in the filing cabinets and the safe.
The
and
stuff in the bathroom.
You did that yourself, remember?
Right.
But at the end of the day, I'm not sure if these plot details surrounding these questions regarding the shredding will be displayed to us next season in the plot of season 6 of Better Call Saul as part of this flash forward Breaking Bad timeline scene, or if this was just throwaway dialogue here in this scene. But now, getting back to the details in this scene, on top of all of this, there were also many more additional details that were revealed to us here in this scene that will likely need to be addressed next season as well, such as the story behind the money in the ceiling, as well as Saul's shoebox that we saw him take from behind the wall in his office. Of course, it should be noted that we first saw this shoebox in the very first episode of season 1 of Better Call Saul, entitled Uno, which displayed to us that this shoebox contained a mishmash of items such as a Band-Aid tin and a passport for the country of Panama. And then we saw it again in the first episode of season 5 of Better Call Saul, entitled Magic Man. Where we learned that inside the Band-Aid tin that was shown here contained a large quantity of diamonds, yet another unknown aspect of the storyline that will need to be addressed next season as well. And just as another quick side note here, we actually also saw this Band-Aid tin in the flashback cold opening scene of season 3 of Better Call Saul in the episode entitled Slip, when Jimmy and Marco broke into Jimmy's father's old abandoned corner store in Cicero, Illinois, which took place in the timeline of Better Call Saul in season 1 in the episode entitled Marco as part of Jimmy's week in Cicero. But it should be noted that at the time, this Band-Aid tin only contained old coins and not the diamonds we saw in season 5. Additionally, we also saw Jimmy at the end of the scene take the Band-Aid tin with him in order to display to us the continuity of how it ended up in the shoebox as well. So yeah, now with all that being presented, in summary, we will seemingly need to see next season as part of this flash forward scene, 1, how that shoebox got behind the wall in the first place, 2, the significant meanings behind the diamonds inside the Band-Aid tin, and 3, the story behind the money in the ceiling, as Saul Goodman's dialogue of 3 cheers for morality.
Jackpot! It's all here.
Meaning what exactly?
Yeah, meaning, field mice, and, you got your nest building squirrel, you got your whatever. 3 cheers for morality.
Really leaves me asking a lot of questions surrounding the origins of this money. And with it being theoretically possible that all of these events took place in the timeline of Breaking Bad, as opposed to the timeline of Better Call Saul, I think we could see the creators utilize a flash forward scene in the plot of next season, or dare I say flash forward episode, to explain all of these aforementioned open-ended plot details to us. So yeah, I think that pretty much sums up the one scene from the Breaking Bad timeline that we've seen so far in the plot of Better Call Saul. And while it certainly appears that all the aforementioned plot details that were displayed to us in this episode will need to be addressed next season, at the same time, I also find myself wondering if we could see maybe other additional scenes from the Breaking Bad timeline take place next season as well, as I have seen many people online speculate that a scene in this timeline could be used in order to display to us the resolution of some open-ended plot details from the plot of Breaking Bad as it pertains to Saul Goodman. For example, a detailed on-screen display perhaps of how Saul was able to poison Brock with the Lily of the Valley plant at the request of Walter White.
I put my ass on the line for you. Huel, too, huh? He's got fingers like hot dogs. He could have easily busted this in two and killed everyone in the office. But do I complain? No, beg, borrow, or steal. I'm your Huckleberry. I go the extra mile. Only you never told me that kid would wind up in the hospital.
A plot detail that is currently unknown and open-ended. And in my humble opinion, I think a scene of this nature is definitely theoretically possible, as this storyline directly pertains to Saul Goodman and could provide us with more nuance and subtle detail surrounding Saul's actions and emotions in this storyline that as an ace kicker could also give the creators another opportunity to incorporate Walter White into the plot of Better Call Saul next season as well. But of course, at the end of the day, we're just speculating here. But yeah, definitely can't wait to see how the Breaking Bad timeline will impact the plot of Better Call Saul next season and what characters from the plot of Breaking Bad will play a role in this timeline as well. And with there already being so many plot details surrounding the Breaking Bad timeline that need to be addressed next season, in addition to all the other storylines that need resolution as part of the present day Better Call Saul timeline and the Gene Takovic timeline, I'll be very curious to see how much on-screen time will be devoted to each one of these three timelines next season in the final 13 episodes of this series by the creators in order to craft and tell the final chapter of the complete story of Saul Goodman. All right, that is all I really got for you guys on this one. As always, a huge thank you and shout out to everyone who watches and comments on my videos. I really appreciate it. That being said, let me know what you think about the Breaking Bad timeline next season and what you think will happen surrounding all of these open-ended plot details. As always, my name is Anton Jackson. Thank you again so much for watching this video, and I can't wait to watch and review the final season of Better Call Saul in less than a month from now.